Hi, Lisa. Well, it looks like it's 7 o'clock, or 7:01 actually, according to my computer. And everyone seems to be present, so
Let's see,
I
Mark.
will
Where the fuck is
start the meeting off.
I'm on no video, no mute. I don't have to show my video until later.
Okay.
That's Marconi right there.
Which guy?
Right there. See his name?
Okay, so let me start off. Well, good evening, and welcome to the April 19th, 2021 special meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, or ZBA. First, let me introduce the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals who are present this evening. I'm Robert Marconi. I'm the chairman of the ZBA. Neil Capola, our vice chairman, is present. Juliana Zach, our secretary, is present. Larry Rushmeyer is present. Louise Turgenovsky Marconi is present. Lisa Temple is present. And Fran Lally, our zoning enforcement officer, is present, as well as Allison Kennedy, our recording secretary. I believe that since all of the elected members are present, let's see. Larry, we probably won't need you to actually vote on anything unless somebody recuses themselves. But we still are happy to have you here. So let me proceed with this. The current agenda can be found under board meetings on the Town of Brookfield website. Now, I will call each applicant one at a time. When I call the property address, please come forward and tell us about your appeal. After we've gone through all the cases on the agenda tonight, that is all of the evidentiary portion of the cases, we will close the public evidentiary portion of the meeting, but then we'll deliberate in open executive session. That means that everybody can be present and hear us and see us, but the members will be just speaking to each other. You must have at least 4 affirmative votes to have your appeal granted. And since we have at least 5 voting members tonight, I don't think we have to have anyone sign any waivers, unlike times when we've only had 4 voting members available. You are welcome to stay to the end of the meeting or contact the land use office in the morning. And I'd recommend that you just stick around to the end of the meeting to hear how the board will be voting. Note that in regards to any appeal that is granted, it is constrained to the plan submitted and to any purposes stated in the application, unless the board specifically notes otherwise. Now, the public evidentiary hearing is only one aspect of the approval process and is for the purposes of accepting factual information and data bearing on this application. It allows expression of opinion by interested parties as well. The final decision that this board will reach may be in the form of approved as submitted, or approved with stipulations that is conditions, or disapproved. After reading to the record the correspondence received by the board relative to this application, we will ask the applicant to present the application in detail. The chair will then entertain questions of clarification from board members concerning the applicant's presentation. We will then hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the application, followed by those who are opposed. Following each side of the question, the applicant will be allowed to make concluding remarks. So all questions and comments must be directed through the chair. As you are recognized, please state your name and address each time before you speak so that your comments may be legally recorded and everybody knows who's speaking. Please be assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. Now, however, the Zoning Board of Appeals is most interested in hearing factual information relative to the application. And in view of the time constraints placed upon us, we ask your indulgence in not simply reiterating comments previously presented. So let me move on to the rest of the agenda. The next item is to review the minutes of our March 1st, 2021 meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion to adopt the March minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so Louise and Neil, okay. So Neil, you seconded it, I guess.
Okay.
Does anybody have any changes or corrections they would like to make to the March minutes?
No.
Hearing none, I'll take a vote. All in favor of approving the March minutes, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, they have been adopted. The next item on the agenda is a review of correspondence, minutes of other boards and commissions. That is just basically for our benefit of informing us as to what is going on in land use commissions. We have no action that needs to be taken on those. So the next item would be the public hearings. And the first item is the application at 3 Nichols Court. That is application number Z-21-16. And will the proponents identify themselves and describe their application?
Hi, good evening. My name is Brad DeMott. I'm an architect representing Don and Suzanne Berry. We are proposing or requesting a variance to exceed the maximum allowable square footage in accessory apartment, which is 800 square feet. And this is, as you know, this is allowed by a special permit as long as all the conditions are met. But in this case, we need a variance first because we're over the max allowable square footage. So a little bit of the backstory here. The Berries have lived in Brookfield for 33 years. They raised 2 kids, and the kids are now in their 20s, and one of them is engaged. And they've recently outgrown their previous house, and they typically at this point in their life, the parents would downsize and the kids would move out on their own. And then the pandemic came along and kind of threw a curveball at them. And kids were out of work, they lost their job, and on top of that, their daughter-in-law came down with stage 4 cancer. So this really made them reassess their values and what's really important. And what they decided to do was, they want to live together, they want to stay together and be close where they could support each other. And how to do that would be to buy a bigger house than they previously had, and at the same time create some independence so they could live together but still be somewhat separate at times. And so the existing house is about 5,500 square feet over 2 floors, and there's a finished basement, which is another 1,351 square feet. And what we're proposing to do is to remodel that basement and create it's essentially an apartment down there, but it's an apartment for their daughter. And so while the apartment is 1,300, or the first floor, the existing basement is 1,323, and we'd be actually just finishing another 28 square feet to create a laundry closet that is just adjacent to an existing bathroom, just because the plumbing is right there. So, this is an existing basement that's finished, and while 800 square feet is the max allowable, it just really doesn't make sense to kind of unfinish and lose 500 square feet of that. We really just want to remodel what's there. And, this is really, this is consistent with the intent of the accessory apartment regulations to, enable property owners to meet the housing and social needs of residents of Brookfield, and, alternative housing arrangements. And it really kind of meets their specific needs as far as their family goes. And, all the other criteria of the special permit is for accessory apartments are met. All the other conditions, and that's an approval from the zoning commission, which would be our next step. But in this case, we do need a zoning variance first for exceeding that 800 square feet, which is the max allowable.
And we also have a health and safety issue with the individual daughter-in-law having stage 4 cancer.
That's correct.
Okay. With that in mind, I'll start off with any questions from any members of the board first.
My concern is it's a 65% increase over the allowable square footage. We've had a couple other cases in here with similar square footage that we've had to turn down because of the size. Is there a way we can eliminate some of the usable space out of that? To shrink it down? That's, I mean, the mechanic room.
Currently what's there is
counted.
one big open space with that's finished, and there's a bathroom. And I could, let's see. Let's try and do a screen share. It looks like you've disabled screen sharing. Maybe you could bring it up on your end.
Yeah, Allison, if you could do that.
I can make you a co-host, and then that will allow you to share your screen. You should be able to share your screen now.
All right, so this is the, can everybody see that?
No.
No.
Not yet.
Okay.
While we're searching, I have a question.
Well, I have photos, but for some reason the
On your figuring of the square footage, you back out the mechanical rooms and walk-in closet, the stairwells.
Well, the mechanical room wasn't included.
Okay.
Okay, so for some reason I'm having trouble sharing the plans. Now let's try this. I think I got it. All right, can we see that?
Yep.
Okay. So the proposed basement, or well, the existing basement is really in the left half of this house. Currently one big space with the bathroom that's finished. And then what we're proposing to do is to essentially create a bedroom with a closet. The existing stair would remain, and then you'd have a kitchenette across the back with a dining area.
Fred, you just got muted. If you
Yeah.
could unmute, please.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me now?
We stopped
Yep.
hearing you when you start talking about the kitchenette.
Okay, so the existing basement is on the left half of this house. It's one big space with a finished bathroom. And what we're proposing to do is to, just essentially remodel the finished space to create a bedroom in the lower left corner with a walk-in closet to the right of that. The existing stair going up would remain. And then across the back half of the house, the basement, there's a kitchen next to the bathroom, and then a dining area and a living area on the left. And when you put furniture in this plan, and to lose 500 square feet would be a fairly significant compromise. And on top of it, the space is already finished, and we would literally have to create unfinished storage.
It's a big jump over our limits of the 800 feet. That's my concern. That's my only concern.
If we were challenged on this by someone else who wanted to do the same thing, or, I mean, we are charged with having to take into consideration the hardship related to the land, not necessarily other types of hardships, although health and safety is relevant, I would say. How would you help us to counter that type of argument that this isn't really related to the nature of the land?
No.
One.
Right, typical variances for hardship, when it's related to land are different, in terms of whether it's topography or rock or septic systems or wetlands, and none of those really apply in this case. And if anything, this is more personal, but I understand that Connecticut statutes really don't take personal hardship into consideration.
How many square feet is this apartment going to be?
This would be 1351.
Including the 800 square feet
Yes.
variance?
So we're 551 square feet above 800.
I agree with Neil. That's a big reach for square footage for us.
We made somebody tear their finished basement out last year so they could sell their house because it was oversized. And a walkout basement. That's my concern. They're going to come back and sue us for loss of income.
What would you
understand
recommend, Neil?
I can understand the concern about, not wanting, setting a precedent. But, as with variances, every case is unique.
Yeah, but in this case, you're really not giving us any kind of argument that is allowable within the statutes. So we are in a bind here. That's what we are trying to see if there is any further argument or any additional argument to your claim, so we can grant this variance.
Well, there's clearly no hardship related to the land. This is interior remodeling.
I have a question. If you took the space as is and remodeled it, what would the difference be between the existing space and the additional space you're looking for?
I'm sorry, I really can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
It's a little better.
All right. So I'm just curious, if you took the existing space that you have now, and I'm just wondering, what's the difference between the existing space and why do you need the additional space? I mean, can we use the?
It's only, well, the difference is only 28 square feet, which is a laundry closet created to the right of the existing bathroom. And it's located there because we have plumbing there. So we pushed that into an unfinished mechanical room.
Would it be helpful to overlay the current drawings, Brad?
The existing plan?
Yes.
Yeah, let's try that. All right, can we see that? That's the existing basement plan.
Can't see it.
We just see the file screen now. We don't see the plan yet.
Oh, okay. How about that?
Okay, we can see that now.
Okay, so this is the existing basement plan. Essentially one big space, one big rectangle on the left side of the house with the L-shaped stair, bathroom in the right rear corner.
So the difference is going ahead and just using the same structural beams, just creating the bedroom with the walk-in closet.
Yeah, there's a series of, there's a girder down the middle of the house, steel beam with a series of columns, and we would be pretty much building a wall in that location to create separate, separate bedroom from living, dining, eating area.
Can you make it work by moving the kitchen towards the dining room, the bathroom where the kitchen is, and walling off the office area? It's,
Yeah, well, I think that yes. I mean, the plan could be redesigned to make all the spaces smaller, and we would just have everything would just have to shift left. Problem with that, though, the problem with that I see though is that the bathroom's a given. So
I
we're
don't-
still going to have to,
I
create
do
access
agree
to-
with Larry on this one, I have to say, just a heads up.
Does anyone know the intent behind the regulation? To prevent overcrowding, I assume.
I am
Well, the
not
intent,
certain.
according to the intent is I mentioned that before. The intent is to enable property owners to meet housing and social needs of Brookfield and to provide an alternative housing arrangement to adequately and comfortably house residents requiring low-cost housing.
The breadth of that has to do with family members. So that's why the square footage was taken into consideration.
Just to reiterate, this is only for family.
right now. The house gets sold, it's a two-family house later on with this big.
It's all the same, well, it's all the same utilities. There's no separation in any, in any aspect, HVAC, thermostats. I mean, everything is shared. So, the upstairs HVAC is shared with the downstairs. So it would not be something that, if it wasn't family, it certainly wouldn't work. Electrical, everything is shared.
As Neil pointed out, though, if the house is sold, those changes could happen.
Mhm.
Nobody would know. So it puts us in a tough situation.
It is true that if we approve a variance, it continues with the house regardless of whether it's family or not. That's something that stays with the house for the rest of the existence of the house. So I'm going to ask Neil and Larry, do you have suggestions? And Juliana, if you have suggestions, I mean, we could put the case off to the next month if it turns out that there are some suggestions that could make it acceptable to you.
You got to get it below 65% over the 800 square feet. It's got to be a little closer.
That's the magic number? Okay.
Gotta rework the floor plan to make that work.
All right, so it's, just to be clear, 65% of what?
Well, right now you're 65% over the 800 square foot limit.
Okay,
That's huge.
Try and work at the 800 square feet.
Yeah. Stay close to that.
Excuse
I know
me,
it's
Chair.
tough. It's all existing. If there were some more walled off areas, mechanical rooms to appear.
all right, so if we could table this,
I don't-
so it looks
I
like it's,
don't believe we take in closets and stairwells.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I don't believe closets and stairwells are included in the square footage. Fran, am I right on that?
No, they are included. That's why zoning changed the regulation.
They are included, all right.
They
I'm
are
sorry,
included.
my mistake.
Yeah, it's gross square footage.
Yep, gross square footage.
All right, well, if we can table this to the next meeting, then we'll look into redesigning the floor plan to reduce the square footage.
Now, the next meeting is the first Monday in May. Would that be enough time for you to rework it, Brad?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, then I'll entertain a motion to table this matter to the next scheduled meeting.
So moved, Louise.
Actually, Robert, can I ask, is there anyone here to speak in favor or against it,
Oh, stop. Sammy?
the application? That might shed some additional light if anybody else has a comment to make. That's not us.
Well, we can take comments from the public first before we actually act on that motion. So,
Yeah.
does any board member have any other comments or questions before we move to the public?
Nope.
Okay. Given that, then I will ask any members of the public who want to speak in favor of this application. Hearing none, I will ask if there are any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application. Hearing none. So Lisa, I don't think that added anything, so maybe we should discuss tabling this to the next meeting.
Yes, okay.
Okay. And we have a motion from Louise. And was that seconded?
Yeah.
Okay, Neil seconded it.
I'll second it. Yep.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? So that's unanimous. So that matter is tabled to the next meeting. And thank you for coming forward and describing the application, Brad.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Okay. So we will move on to the next application, which is for 19 Candlewood Shores, Candlewood Shores Road. That's application number Z-21-17. Would the proponent come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Neil Marcus, Conewolf, BC 158 Deer Hill Avenue, on behalf of the applicant. We're going to request that you pass this matter this evening in contemplation that it may have to be withdrawn. Since our last meeting, we've received some correspondence concerning it, which we need to address. But actually, we've done a little bit more research, and I'm not sure that a variance is even going to be required. The variance that's being requested is to allow an accessory building without a primary principal use on the lot.
Right.
I've looked a little more into the history of this property. It does have a primary principal use. Apparently, a tennis court exists on the site. I can tell that off the plan that we submitted to you. And interestingly enough, your current regulations don't really deal much with tennis courts. They're barely even mentioned in the regulation. However, obviously, at one point when the tennis court was built, it was built in accordance with the prior zoning regulations as a principal use on the lot. It's the only use. So to the extent that we're trying to build a building to house recreational equipment and stuff that actually would be used on a tennis court, leaf blowers and all that stuff, we're now of the opinion that we probably don't need a variance, that we're probably allowed as of right. So until I do a little bit more research and have a few more discussions with Fran Lawley and possibly with Tom Beecher, I think it would be premature to ask for the variance because we may not need it at all. So I'll ask your indulgence to continue it into your next meeting, and by then we should have a final decision.
Then I'll take a motion to table this to the next meeting.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
I'll
Lisa
second that.
seconds it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so the ball's in your court.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and tomorrow morning I'll practice a little bit with my tennis court up in Newtown that we play early.
Very, very good. Okay, so the next case we have is for 190 Candlewood Lake Road. That is Z-21-20.
Correct. And again, for Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, Neil Marcus, Conewolf, PC 158 Deer Hill Avenue, on behalf of the Gia Marinos who are requesting the variance. This variance was in front of you in a different format a number of months ago. And based on the comments and the action of the board at that meeting, the applicants have gone back to the drawing board and have redesigned the structures that they seek to use to replace the existing shed. And so if you look at the application that was filed, trying to find it myself. It shows a proposal to tear down an existing old, somewhat dilapidated functionally obsolete building and replace it with a newer structure that is actually more conforming to the zoning regulations, which is always the desired outcome. The application, if I can find the whole thing here, give me a minute.
While Neil is searching
Yeah,
for the
I'm going to
record,
ask Abigail is here too.
yes,
Maybe you can-
for the record, Abigail Adams, registered landscape architect, owner A2 Land Consulting, New Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm happy to share my screen while Neil is looking for that to pull up the plan so we can at least be looking at the site plan.
That would make sense at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
So, oh, go ahead, Neil.
I was going to say, I'm going to ask Abigail, since she designed the plan here, to take you through the plan itself. We'll point out the building that's going to be replaced, and we'll point out the variances that are going to be required to do that, and how the building will be more conforming to the one that's there now, even though, quite honestly, we are not making a huge significant change to the location of the structure. We're trying to do the minimum that would be required to upgrade this building. So take it from there, Evan.
Okay. So what we're looking at right now is the zoning location survey that has been prepared by Paul Hyro surveyors. This square here is the existing framed canopy carport that exists right now. The driveway, you can see that in the gray lines. This is the existing garage with the deck around the three sides and steps. We are still proposing to remove this garage and relocate it along the property line here. Currently, this carport sits 4.2 feet off of the property line. We are proposing to shift this building up a bit, almost so it's in line with the existing garage that's going to be relocated. And we are proposing it be 6 feet off of the property line. Last time we were here, we were looking to keep it at the 4.2 in a similar location. Again, we've moved it slightly closer to the road, and we're pulling it an even 6 feet off of the property line. This will allow maneuvering within the driveway, turnaround, and the reason we need this in this location, we have the entire septic system in this area here. Here's the existing tanks. Here's the leaching field. We can't shift it this direction. We also listened to the board and we took a look at this area of the property off of Twin Rocks. It's very steep in here. We would need massive retaining walls. It interrupts the well, and it would be an exorbitant amount of construction and disruption to the natural site that's happening here. This entire wooded area would need to be cleared. And again, lots of retaining walls would be needed on this portion. I'm going to stop this share and I'm going to go to my plan actually that gives just a little bit more information. You can see the topo. I'm not sure if it's shared or not. Hold on one moment, sorry. It didn't share. Okay, that's better, I think. So this gives a little bit clearer of a picture of exactly what's going on and what we're looking to do. Again, the proposed garage location, how this all works with the topo. We tried to pull it up a little bit closer, but once you start moving too close up to Candlewood Lake Road, it starts to become very steep in the driveway, and the maneuverability just isn't there. And we've added the topo so you can see exactly what's happening. If we have, you know, the 489, 486, 47, we work with one of these contours here, you can see the grade just slopes away. We would start having 8, 9, even 10-foot high retaining walls. And again, any kind of maneuverability to get the garage back where it needs to be interrupts the well and any kind of natural features that are happening on the site over there. So ideally, we are looking at relocating to this northern property line along here to open up this corridor and make the driveway much more functional for the homeowner.
Why is the garage being discarded in the first place, the existing one?
It's my understanding that this existing garage is being just lifted and homeowners can speak to that, and we are relocating it.
All right.
Again, maneuverability, it's very difficult you come down this straight, steep shot, then trying to back up and maneuver around this corner. This just makes it a lot easier to come down, back in, or pull in and then back around into this turnout area. It's a much more functionally, much more functional. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, the current garage is functionally obsolescent. It's difficult to use, and it's somewhat dilapidated. And in reality, it's very close to the Visurca property line. So what we could accomplish here is to shift the garage slightly from its current location, move it further away from the Visurca property line, and at the same time make it work better. Right? A much more functional building, as Abigail has said. And we looked all over the site. I mean, there is really, literally, because the hardship exists in the fact that you have a steep grade. Of course, you have the 440 contour line to deal with. You have a relatively narrow lot to begin with in the rear. The front of the lot is wider, but the topography doesn't allow you to put it anywhere else than where it is currently. So the theory was take the location that works and improve the site, improve it in particular for the next door neighbor who has has to look at it, even though there's a fence there. You don't see a lot of it, but that's the closest point for observation. Having reviewed the prior application, which was a more significant relocation of the building, much different from what's shown today. The argument there from the next door neighbor, from Mark Visurca, was concerned his property on the other side of Candlewood Lake Road, at the corner of Elbow Hill. And that property would be to the northeast of the subject parcel. And there was a concern that the view from the cabins on the property off of Elbow Hill would be impacted, and they wouldn't be able to, you would be able to see the lake. And of course, when that concern was raised, because the property, the prior application was moving the building a little bit to the south on the lot, we decided that the best way to deal with that and to answer that was to essentially leave it in virtually the same location, make it, as I say, slightly more conforming, but at the same time have no visual impact at all. So Abigail has shown the issue that was raised during the last hearing, and that would be the red line. That's essentially your sight line from the Visurka cottages out towards Lake Candlewood. And as you can see, the only real sight line you have is between the existing structure and the house, both existing structures. So what we've done here to address his concerns is to leave that exact same sight line in place. Virtually, it's unaffected. I think Abigail also went out and shot some photos. Now we didn't have access to the Visurka property, so we really couldn't take photos from the point where that red line starts. However, I think we do have some photos that simulate what the view is. Maybe we can show those.
Sure. I'll pull those up in just a second, but if you don't mind, Neil, I'm just going to add the fact that you can tell that the majority of these cottages are lining up directly in line with the neighbor's property, not with the property in question. I mean, you pull this fence line here, and this is what these houses are facing. It's either the Sokol Lodge or Mr. Visurka's home, which is heavily landscaped and in itself blocks quite a few of those views. So I'm going to stop this share and I'll pull up some of the images if that's okay with everybody. So this is the corner of Elbow Hill. So this garage would be rotated and be sitting in this location. Oops, am I sharing? Can you see it or no?
No.
We see your face, Abigail, not.
Oh my goodness, my beautiful face.
Yeah.
Hold on, sorry about that. Sometimes Zoom does not cooperate with me. Okay, I think that the images may be up now.
It's uploading.
Let's start it. Let's start again.
There's the picture.
We're good.
There's the picture. Okay. Okay, so this is the corner of Elbow Hill right there, looking at, this is the
Main residence.
subject property. This is the carport that we're going to remove. This is the garage that we will be relocating and rotating 90 degrees. This is the neighbor's property with the landscape. So I'm just going to scroll through. I don't need to spend a ton of time on these, but it's just so everyone can see, you know, these are the views from the road and looking at the lake. And I don't really feel as though the views will be, ignore the truck. And these again are from the road. Like when you're on the road, you really can't, you can see snippets of the lake. And actually from our property, you can see more of the lake than the views from the neighbors. That's just another angle, sort of looking at the cottages where the views would be over the neighbor's property in the Sokol Lodge more than the subject property. That's just an aerial view. It's very difficult to see. The image didn't come out so well, but here's our subject property way up in the corner there. That one's difficult to see as well, but there nonetheless.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the application is really pretty simple and straightforward. It involves a small variance. Well, I say small variance. It requires the 24-foot variance to allow a 6-foot setback, which is currently 4.2 feet. So we're adding up roughly 1.5 feet, slightly almost 2 feet to the setback from the Visurka property line on the north. And other than that, there, basically the more modern structure just replaces one that is, as I say, somewhat deficient. And I can't imagine, quite honestly, that it has any significant negative impact on anybody. In your file, I'm hoping that you have received some letters from the neighbors concerning this. And I'll go through them in a second. There's a letter from John Kennedy to actually addressed to Nina. And he writes on behalf of the Danbury Slavic Gymnastic Union Sokol Lodge in the James D. Lewis Brookfield Memorial VFW post 10-201. And personally, they're all in favor of the grant of the variance requested. And they had supported that in the prior application, and they continue to support it. And of course, they are not a direct neighbor, but they are certainly in the vicinity where they would be potentially impacted. And then there's a letter that was addressed to Abigail Adams. I think we submitted, and it's from Russell Zentner. And he's alleged to be the next door neighbor of the property located at 190 Kenwood Lake Road, Brookfield. His address is really 4 Twin Rocks Road in Brookfield. He writes to inform that he does not oppose the application for the variance relative to the property at 190 Kenwood Lake Road. Stated another way, I'm in favor of Mr. and Mrs. Giamarino's application being granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals in the town of Brookfield for the variance at issue. And then he gives his contact information. Those are the two that stand out that we have received. So that is basically the substance of the application. Again, we think that we meet the criteria of making a property a little more conforming. We certainly are not asking to overburden the use of our property because of the applicant's property, because clearly this is a building that has existed and is just old and somewhat decrepit, and there's no reason why it can't be upgraded. As to say, the criteria that we normally worry about, or the board should normally worry about, is how is this negatively going to impact the neighborhood? And quite honestly, a couple of the neighbors have gone out of their way to support it, which we appreciate. And just practically speaking, if you look at the pictures that were on the board from Abigail, and particularly the issue of the view from across the street, that all mitigates towards an approval because there really is no negative impact on the properties on the corner of Elbow Hill and Candlewood, and there really is no negative impact on the two adjacent property owners on either side. The old building, it has more of a influence on the adjacent property than the newly reconstructed building. So that's the application. We'd be happy to answer any of the questions that the commission might have, or to hear any questions from the public. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm sure that there's another council who may have an opinion on this. So we'll get a chance to hear from both of you, of course. So let me just start off, though, by asking any members of the board if they have any questions of council or Ms. Adams.
The existing carport is open on all 4 sides, correct?
Correct.
And the height on that carport, maximum height on that carport is?
It's a 1-story. I don't know the maximum height of the roof. Mickey, do you have any thoughts? I want to say 14 or 15 feet.
And then,
Maybe.
and the proposed structure peak will be height?
It's whatever it is in that. I don't have the actual height of the building. It's a 2-story garage.
So it's substantially taller, correct?
It is over the carport, but my ridge line is below the neighbor's ridge line, if you're comparing apples to apples.
Well, there was a conversation about line of sight, and you have a carport that you can look through because there are no walls. That's fairly low. Now you're going to put a 2-story structure up. That's just to start with. Secondarily, we're going to knock down a compliant building and give you a variance to put up a non-compliant building.
Actually, we have a non-compliant building to start with.
It's a carport.
Yes.
Correct. There's a
I
big
mean, it's a structure. A structure is a structure.
garage and a carport by a lot.
Well, I was trying to turn a
Hang on, yeah, just for the record, so we understand. A carport is allowed in the zone. The use of the property for a carport is not a violation or a non-conformity. A garage is also really allowed. I mean, a lot of people on Candlewood Lake Road have garages. They're allowed in the zone. And actually, a lot of them are non-conforming only because, zoning came in to affect that area a long time after these had been constructed. But so it's not that we're not asking for a variance to build a garage. In reality, that's allowed. The issue is we are actually asking for a variance to allow us to have a more conforming sideline than currently exists. On the issue that you raise about the sightlines, you can't look through the building to see the lake. Your sightline is above that. The only place you can see the lake is if you're looking between the two buildings, and you can still do that. So that we are not changing, but by making the building more conforming by becoming a garage, we're not impacting sites at all. And if there's a question there, we'll go back and ask Abigail to run through the study that she did of where the actual view is. And that view we're talking about is essentially the corner of Elbow Hill and Candlewood Lake Road, which would include the cottages, but you'd have to come to the corner and look through the two buildings to have a view. If you're actually at the cottages themselves, you're looking at the Vasurka property or the Sokol property. You don't even see, you could see the houses over there, but you can't see the lake. So just to be, if there's any confusion, that's what we're doing.
I would pull up to that stop sign and look right over the existing carport into the lake at this point. And now you put a 2-story car garage up right in that view. That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, but in reality, you'll have the same view over the top of the building because your perspective is going up over the building. You'll still see the lake. There's no question. Because of where you are in the location of the building down gradient, will quite honestly, you would barely notice the difference in the height from that perspective. But right now, you can look up over the top of the building and see a lake in the distance. That'll be the same. That view will not change. But in reality, I'm not sure that the view from the stop sign is really all that important because quite honestly, you shouldn't be looking out at the lake. You should be looking at the traffic on Candlewood Lake Road because most people at the stop sign are looking to go either left or right and not straight ahead. The perception of what you will see because of the grades and the heights will not change. You'll have the same view.
Did we receive
you have
any
something you want to
communications?
add?
Did we receive any communications from the cottages across the street?
I haven't seen any.
Okay.
Surprising.
I'd simply ask Fran, did we receive anything else that is not in the agenda? It looks like we received a letter from a Mr. Rossi. We received a letter from Mr. Zenter. We have received some pages from Robert Fuller's Land Use Law and Practice of Variances. I believe Neil, you've seen that too?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I actually know the author personally.
Is this the Judge Fuller?
Bob Fuller, yeah. I've known him. He practices in Wilton. He's a local lawyer before he was a judge.
Okay. Let me ask, just to make sure to confirm my own personal memory. Did the ZBA reject the application before that was concerning this property, or was it withdrawn before a vote, or what?
Rejected it.
Okay. Thank you very much, counsel. Okay. First of all, I'm going to ask if there are any other comments or questions from members of the board.
Nope.
Okay. So now I will ask, is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Hearing none. Now, counsel, I think we can get to you. Those who want to speak in opposition to this application.
Yes.
Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Good evening. My name is Attorney Michael Leventhal. My address is 49 Huntington Plaza, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484. I'm here representing Mark Vasurka, who is the owner of 198 Candlewood Lake Road, which is also known as 200 Candlewood Lake Road. And that property abuts 190 Candlewood Lake Road immediately to its north. Mr. Vasurka also owns the property across the street at 189 Candlewood Lake Road. This is the second variance application by the Giamarinos, who purchased 190 Candlewood Lake Road in July of 2020. The first application was filed in September 2020, and it was heard at the ZBA hearing on October 5, 2020. And that application was denied, got that right here, for the reason that no hardship was proven. And that decision was published within 15 days of the decision, and it was not opened or appealed. And it is therefore a final decision. It cannot be reconsidered by this board. And the authority for that is the case called Sharp v. Zoning Board of Appeals, 43 Connecticut Appellate Reporter, 512. It's a 1996 decision. The first application, the September 2020 application, sought a variance from the requirements of zoning regulation section 3.5, requiring a 30-foot minimum side yard in an R40 zone. That application sought a variance of 25.8 feet to place a 2-story structure 4.2 feet from the property line. The application that is before the board this evening is nearly identical to the application that was denied by the board on October 7, 2020. The only difference is that they moved the proposed location of the 2-story structure 1 foot 9.5 inches further away from the property line. That is the only difference. If you look at the two applications, the reasons cited are verbatim, except there's a typo on the new one. I think they meant to say house and they spelled hose, H-O-S-E, but other than that, the reasons given are identical. So this time, instead of seeking a 25.8 foot variance, they now seek a 24-foot variance. No hardship is recited in this application. And the reason for that is that they can't cite a hardship. There is none. The reasons given are all aesthetic, and there's no hardship. So my first argument is that the board is based on the case law, and that's why I presented the board with Judge Fuller's treatise on similar prior applications. My position is that the board is prohibited from hearing the second application because it is nearly identical to the application that the board denied at the October 5, 2020 hearing for no hardship. And Judge Fuller's treatise is frequently cited by our Superior Court judges, Appellate Court judges, and Supreme Court. And he provides in section 9.6, citing case law, that if it appears that there is a similar prior variance application which was denied for the same property, the Zoning Board of Appeals cannot properly grant the second variance application. And the authority for that is the case Laurel Beach Association v. ZBA, 166 Connecticut Supreme Court Reporter at 385, 1974 decision. And I quote, and this is dealing with the facts in that case, but it's the same scenario. Quote, there was no material change in circumstances between the two hearings. The case comes clearly within the established law of this state, which prohibits the Zoning Board of Appeals from reversing its prior or previous decision unless the facts and circumstances which actuated the decision are shown to have so changed as to vitiate or materially affect the reason which produced and supported it, and no vested rights have intervened. And the reason for that is to provide finality to the process, to the aggrieved parties. And so the board doesn't have to keep hearing the same application. By filing this application within 6 months of the denial of their first application, the Giamarinos are essentially asking the board to reconsider the prior decision, which the board cannot do. It's an exactly identical application, but for 1 foot 9.5 inches. Nothing else has changed. And once that prior decision was published on October 7, they had 15 days to appeal pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 8-8. They didn't do that. And the reason for that short appeal period from the date of publication is to provide finality to the aggrieved parties and to secure a speedy determination of the issues involved. There have been no change of conditions or other considerations that have intervened which materially affect the merits of the matter already decided. And I'll keep repeating, the two applications are identical, but for 1 foot 9.5 inches. They are seeking to take a 2-story building, which has an apartment with a bathroom in it, which has it's actually a septic system attached to it, and move it within 6 feet of my client's property. What is there now is simply an open carport, a 1-story carport with a roof and a slab. And it's probably was there 4.2 feet from the property line for years. So it was grandfathered in. But if they're going to make a change here, they have to make it less non-conforming. And to put a 2-story building right on top of my client's property with a deck on it where they can overlook into my client's property doesn't make it more conforming. It makes it less, it makes it more non-conforming. And the board knows that it's based upon Connecticut General Statutes 8.6 and Zoning Reg 8.7. It's only authorized to grant a variance where a hardship is proven. That's the sine qua non. That must be established before this board can grant this application, and they've established no hardship. The granting of a variance must be reserved for unusual or exceptional circumstances. An application for a variance must show that because of some peculiar characteristic of the property, the strict application of the zoning reg produces an unusual hardship as opposed to the general impact which the regulation has on other properties in the zone. They've identified no conditions especially affecting their parcel. They state they cannot move the structure to the rear due to the septic, but they offer no evidence regarding the septic system. They've not discussed the feasibility of their plan. I don't believe they discussed it with the Brookfield Health Department as it relates to the system that's already in place on the property. and the need to have a reserve septic system under section B 100A of the Connecticut Health Code. So they really haven't thought the process out. So I want to actually then address some of the statements that were made. Mr. Marcus seemed to indicate that the structures are identical. I think that's been identified that they're not. We've got a one-story open carport, which they want to replace with a two-story building that has an apartment with a bathroom and a deck. Two completely different buildings, and a substantially higher building that they want to now move 6 feet from my client's property line. So my position is there's nothing especially affecting the property that rises to the level of a hardship set forth in the statute or the regs. The applications are identical, and the first one was denied. So the board cannot re-entertain this application. Now, they made a point about the sight line from the property across the street, and that is important. But of more importance is the fact that this is going to be a two-story building with a deck that will enable the Giamarinos to overlook my client's property and invade his privacy. That's, the fact issues, not the legal issues. So I think for all those reasons, I'd ask that the board respectfully deny the application.
Okay. I'm going to ask any board members if they have questions for council.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Mind providing it to me again, the statute that says, or the number section for the finality of the decision? I just want to confirm that.
Well, as to the
That the
first.
decision had the appeal time and then the appeal elapsed, and now we can no longer entertain the same decision?
There's a couple of cases. One is, they're cases. I can give you the sites for the cases.
Yes, please.
Laurel Beach Association versus ZBA. It's 166 Connecticut Reporter 385.
The second,
And the other one was Sharp,
VZBA.
SHRP v Zoning Board of Appeals, 43 Connecticut Appellate, Reporter 512. And another case is Burlington versus Gensick, JENCIK, 168 Connecticut 506.
Can you spell that again, please?
Burlington versus Gensick, JENCIK, 168 Connecticut Reporter 506. It's actually at page 508 of that decision. That talks more about the hardship requirement.
Thank you.
All right, so let me ask first, are there any other members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none. And I will also ask whether are there any other board members who want to address this. So I'm going to give our other counsel opportunity to respond to Mr. Leventhal's, Attorney Leventhal's arguments. So
Briefly, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
go right ahead.
So I can't dispute that there's Connecticut law that talks about the fact that you can't file, or the board is not required to hear. It's not saying that you can't file. It says that the board is not required to hear an application that is substantially similar to one that has been determined within the time period where they don't have to consider it. That I'll agree. However, to take that position in say And on top of that, when an applicant gets a decision from the board, the applicant can't take into consideration how to address the issues that the prior application was denied, is not what the Connecticut law is. And there is no case that states that. So really, unfortunately, I'm not sure that we've made our position very clear in our presentation. So we're going to have to go back over just a little bit of it, and I'm going to have to call on Abigail again. But recall that the prior application, which I was not present for, so I'm not sure exactly what was presented. I tried to pick up as much of it as I could from the minutes. But the prior application, it appears that the board found there was no hardship. And there seemed to be a lot of discussion about the view across the street. So, which I now understand from Attorney Loveland is not as significant an issue. So we went back and we looked at the site to determine, well, is there really a hardship? Well, the hardship, as I thought Abigail had explained earlier, lies in the topography and the, in particular, the grade of the site and its shape and the location of existing septic fields and a residence. So I just, if Abigail, I hate to ask you to do this again, but would you go one more time through what when we found that there wasn't a hardship, we went back and at my request, I asked you to determine where else on the site could this property, this building be relocated so that it could be improved into a real garage. And what did you come up with again?
We were unable to pull it closer to the road, which had been, one of the board members had asked if we could maybe pull it closer to Candlewood Lake Road and away from the property line a little bit, and also to look at access to a new garage off of Twin Lakes, which is not feasible. And of course, we can't tuck it in further to allow more driveway space where the existing septic is. And with all due respect, we would go to the health department after we received ZBA approval. We wouldn't spend several thousands of dollars getting a B100 with an engineer if we weren't going to get ZBA approval. It's an exorbitant amount of money to ask an applicant to do. We obviously, in order to relocate the garage, would need to go through all of the building permitting and the health department. We understand that that's a step that would need to be taken. So I just wanted to add that note.
So following up on that, if you focus in on the site plan and look at the maps that have been submitted in connection with the application, on Twin Rocks Road, if you were to come in off of there, I mean, you're fighting a lot of grade. Those contour lines are very close to each other. Abigail, I see you're going to throw that up there. So I'm not sure the Zentners would be very happy. They've supported this application because their house is very close to the property line. They would appear to have a pre-existing non-conforming side yard to begin with. So if we were to try to put it in there, A, it would be an imposition of it, but B, it physically just doesn't work. And I'm not sure that the ZBA was aware of that, because clearly that's something that was asked of us at the last hearing. So one of the things that mitigates against Attorney Leventhal's argument is that if the ZBA had asked us to look at this, they essentially invited us to come back with an answer and to suggest that we couldn't do that because of a case that says they can't consider a similar application is just improper. In fact, it would somewhat impede the operation of the ZBA itself. So that's one area. The second area, of course, if you look at the map and you look again at the grades coming in off of Candlewood Lake Road, and you thought about moving the building to the east, you would still be close to the northerly property line. You can't get away from it because you have to be off of the driveway, but the driveway itself into the garage wouldn't work very well because you'd have no radius to turn. And again, you're fighting a grade. So what we've done is we've looked at that. When you look at the rear of the property, again, we do have the septic system that we talked about that we cannot disturb. And literally, we came upon the conclusion that because of the unique physical characteristics of this site, which of course are the basis for hardship, and to the extent that there's a slight improvement to the side yard, that in fact, it does meet the criteria for a reapplication because it is not the same application. It's the same use type of use. That doesn't change. It's still a taking down a carport that's somewhat dilapidated and replacing it with a real garage. That use is the same, but all of the other aspects of the application are significantly different, and the information that's being provided to the board in support of the application is significantly different. So to the extent that we're going to consider the finality of the decision, I mean, that's not the issue here. The issue here is whether the hardship that was not shown on the prior application can be shown in greater detail on a new application where a lot more study and research and design has gone into the project. So it's not a question that once you find there's no hardship, that means there can never be a finding of hardship on the site. That's not what the statute says, and it's not really what the case law even implies. So we think that this application is clear before the board. With respect to the height of the structure, it is comparable and in line with the building which it faces. Now, across the fence on the Vasurka property, and again, Abigail, you showed that in a photo. Maybe we should bring that photo up again because there seemed to be some question about looking into a neighbor's property.
Sure. Yeah. And you can see on this plan, this information was taken from the Google Earth aerial. So this, in fact, is a 2-story garage on the neighbor's property, which is in very close proximity to the property line. We have shifted our building up, so it was not as close to that one as originally we had it in the corner, so they were almost aligned. Again, shifting it up and away a little bit, and I can go back to those images. There was one good image that did show what we're talking about here. That's the 2-story garage on the neighbor's property. Am I sharing?
No.
No,
Oh,
we're still seeing you again, Ms.
I
Adams.
did it again. I always miss one step in here.
That's why I don't try it. Yeah.
All right. Did the image pop up?
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Okay. So this shows the two. If you are actually in one of the cottages across the street, this is the view you're looking at. Barely any lake view over Mr. Vasurka's property, and that being the 2-story garage.
Yeah, and by the way, stop there for a second. Go back to that one slide. You know, Attorney Leventhal is saying that he's worried about the view of the lake, and actually one of the commissioners also is worried about the view of the lake. But the person who's complaining about it has cut off the view of the lake. He's planted those shrubs so that the people that he rents cottages to across the street can't see the lake anyway. So it has nothing to do with our applicant. But move forward a second, and the next picture, you get a good view. Keep going.
There's one, but there's a better one. Let's see. Let's see. I feel like I had one that I was talking.
That's
I mean,
right there.
this is a pretty good view. So two-story garage, two-story garage. We're basically taking this one, we're flipping it, putting it on the same orientation as the neighbor's garage. So you will still have the same view corridors down through. We are just a little higher, but a little higher behind is also trees blocking the view. So in my opinion, the views will essentially remain the same. You'll still have view corridor through here, view corridor through here, just as you do now.
And again, for the commissioner who is concerned about standing on the corner or not even standing, sitting in a car on the corner and looking out, you'll still see the lake clearly between the structure which we're replacing and the house that exists, and the same view between the structure that we're replacing and the two-story garage on the Vasurka. You'll see it just slightly further back, because from the perspective of being in a car at the corner, the peak of that roof will be just slightly higher, but perception will not be greatly diminished. And you don't see the lake through the carport itself. What you do is you see a gate and a fence.
Right.
You don't see, there's no view through the carport.
Correct.
So that's not going to change. So, and again, if anybody really has a concern, we could actually arrange a site visit to take a look at that issue. That would not be difficult. So I think we've addressed, or we've tried to address in answering the questions or answering the allegations that our process has not been thought through. Well, Abigail tells you we do it in an orderly process, and we stop here first because without a variance, the project has to be redesigned anyway. So the next question is whether the applicant has acted properly in bringing this back to the board, and the board is within the parameters of case law and statute in hearing this. And I think that if you don't believe that we've gone back and taken the board's comments and concerns about hardship seriously to show that, in fact, there is a hardship. It may not have been presented well at the last hearing. I don't know that. But here, I think that Abigail has tried to identify, and I'll ask the commissioners to question her if you don't understand what the issues are and why the site that we're talking about is in fact the only place that this building can be rehabilitated. And what we're doing is we're rehabilitating it to mimic that building that is directly next to it on our neighbor's property. I mean, it's not as if we're doing something that's out of line. And that's always a concern, by the way, for a zoning board of appeals. It's not the criteria by which you make the decision, but at the end of the day, you have to be concerned, I know, that what you would permit is not out of harmony, out of context with what exists in the neighborhood. And here, the fact that you can theoretically look over a fence from one building to the other neighbor's property, either way, either neighbor's building, is not really the concern of should not be the concern of the commission. If that is a concern, then people have to enhance their landscaping, and the only way you do that actually is with planting, because there's a limit to how high you can go with a fence. But quite honestly, you can screen with trees up to a pretty good height and not look at each other's property, if that's a concern. But and if the commission thought that the view to the neighbors is a real consideration that they have to make, then we would offer to add screening to plant what we can to reach a height that would impede that view. That would not be an issue. And again, there's not a lot of room to plant there, but there's probably enough room with some good growing arborvitaes to get to bring evergreen up to the second floor of any garage. So that could be a reasonable condition of approval if that's really a concern. On the other issues, as I say, I think that if you listen carefully to what Abigail has presented, that in fact, it has all of the requisite data to find a hardship. Again, I thank you for your consideration.
I'm going to ask first if any other commissioners have questions to ask either council or Ms. Adams. Okay.
Nothing here.
I would like to ask.
Second. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Me?
Yes.
I would
of
like
course.
to ask Mr. Marcus why an appeal wasn't filed right after that October.
Why?
Yes.
Because I was not in the case at that point, so I was not on this file and hadn't even met with the property owners until the appeal period had expired. So it was never even a concern of mine. But quite honestly, it is very difficult to appeal a ZBA when it finds that there's no hardship. And I told the client that, we talked about, should they have taken an appeal? I said, it's a waste of time. You're better off trying to figure out if there's really a hardship. Your time and energy and money would be much better spent with Abigail Adams than with Neil Marcus trying to do an appeal. And I think they took me up on that advice that we have to go back and redesign the project and then figure out if in fact there's any alternative. And if there isn't, then we have a much more legitimate presentation on hardship. That's why we did it.
Well, I know some of us were convinced that there was a hardship last time. Not everyone voted against it. And so there was certainly evidence to support the hardship from my perspective. But I don't think we had the benefit of a relief map earlier.
Yeah. Lisa, did you realize that, of course, when the judges hear the case, they basically don't substitute their opinions for the opinions of the board members. What they look at is they look at the data that you're acting upon, the record, to see if it would support a finding. And if 2 members out of 5 or 3 members out of 5 make a finding, it's awfully tough to say that that finding is an error. However, I will tell you quite honestly, I received a decision from the Connecticut Supreme Court a few years back where we complained that the trial court found the wrong criteria on a survey. They found that the survey line, they took the wrong survey line. They should have taken the other guy's survey. And the Supreme Court actually held that there's a legitimate argument for both survey lines, but the finding that the trial judge made was not in error, even though they suggested that if he had found the other map was more correct, that probably wouldn't have been an error either.
Well, applying that logic to this case, would you say that if I'm reading this excerpt correctly, 9.6, that there has been a material change of circumstances or other considerations have intervened affecting the merits and no vested rights have arisen? Is that the standard by which we should be reviewing this case?
Yes, I think that other circumstances have arisen, as you've just said, that we have presented to you much more detail on that issue. So that's exactly what 9.6 says. And therefore, it does merit consideration. I agree. I think that Professor Fuller or Judge Fuller has stated it correctly. And we followed.
But I don't think those are new issues. They were simply not presented because we had a pro se applicant at that time.
That's correct.
So the issues always existed.
Those issues were always there, but they were never
Exactly.
presented. Yeah. So they are new issues. I mean, they're new issues. It's like saying that once you've been denied a variance, you can never come back again. And that's not true. You cannot come back with the same application. you can come back with a similar application if there's data that supports it that did not support it. If circumstances have changed, and the circumstances here is that the commission was not aware of the topographical issues in the study that had gone in. And as a matter of fact, by the board's own question, well, just going off of Twin Rocks. Well, that was the fact that we can't do that was not known before the commission on the prior application. So I don't want to split hairs as to what's new and what's not new, but clearly what was new, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to split hairs as to why information wasn't brought in because I wasn't involved. But I will tell you, if you look at the old record and you look at what's presented this evening, there's significantly more data to support the hardship tonight than there was the last time.
May I be heard on that?
Yeah, by all means.
If you go back to the tape from the October 5 hearing, the same exact issues were presented. Topography. And I asked Mr. Marcus this, I'd like to know, he said they need a real garage. They have a real garage there. This building is a 2-car garage with an apartment above it. The carport provides adequate parking for at least 2 cars. Is the whole idea to mimic the building that's on Mr. Vasurka's property? Is that what the hardship is? Because I have not heard one word about a hardship tonight. What's the hardship? Why do they need to move the garage? Where's the hardship?
Okay, the reason for the application is the garage is in disrepair, number one.
That's
So-
not what the application says. The application, and this was what came up last time.
Are you saying that
The application
Because it-
doesn't say that the garage is in disrepair. The application was because they wanted to be able to park their boat and they couldn't get it into the garage that's located there now at the apartment. That's an
That's correct.
aesthetic reason. That's not a hardship. And
No, no.
nothing has changed since October 5. That's my position.
well, again, to the extent that we don't need a hardship to construct a garage or a place to park the boat indoors.
You
The
need a
zoning-
hardship to move a building inside that setback, and that's what
That's
you're
correct.
attempting to do.
And the hardship is that there's no other place to put it topographically.
But
That's
why
the
do you
hardship.
need to move it there in the first place?
Okay, I'd like to interject at this point.
Yep.
We have been given some case citations, and there are at least three lawyers on this board. Plus, I think the non-lawyers wouldn't mind reading either. We have been presented with some factual issues, but also the legal issues. I have not been able to conduct a hearing and also read those cases simultaneously. I don't know particularly if my fellow counsel would want to be able to read all the cases before making a decision, meaning putting this to the next meeting or not. But I'd like to hear from both Attorney Temple and Attorney Zach how you feel, as well as our other members.
I would take the opportunity to read the case law, absolutely, and review the statutes. Because I'm very concerned with the finality of this case. The inability to reopen the case. Yes, I would certainly entertain that.
How about you, Lisa?
Agreed.
And how do our other members feel?
I need some convincing on the hardship.
Yeah, I can download the cases and make sure that I send an email with the case law, the cases to all the members and to Fran. So if we put this on to the next meeting, not unless everybody else feels that they can vote on this based upon just the factual issue of hardship or not at this point.
Again, some of us have, don't need convincing on the hardship necessarily, because I do think that there's topography, you know, that's impacting the decision-making here. But I do think that there is something to be said for this section 9.6, and I'd like to look at that more.
We do have two counsel who have different opinions on the law, and we have case citations. And I like to be able to be as informed as I can be before making a decision on a case. So I'm willing to entertain a motion to table this until the next meeting, which would be the first Monday in May.
So moved.
What-
In a
What's the
second.
date of,
Second that.
what's going to be considered then the date of the submission then?
We are going to, first of all, read the cases that you have provided the citations for. I will also say this much, that if I'm more than willing to invite briefs from both counsel if you wish. I know you've presented the excerpt from Judge Fuller's treatise, and so I'm willing to do that. And I know you provided a case citation, so I wanted to make sure that I can read the cases before making a decision. If I don't know, if that sounds unreasonable to any counsel.
No, Mr. Chairman, as long as we don't have to wait for the other members of the board to be admitted to the bar, that's fine.
I don't think so.
Good, okay.
So we'll take a vote on that motion to table. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that has been tabled to the next meeting then.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Chairman, do you want us to submit anything between now and then, or?
I won't require, but I will be happy to thoroughly read any kinds of briefs, submissions, letters that you wish to submit on your interpretation of the law. Mr. Attorney Leventhal, you've heard what Attorney Marcus had to say, so obviously you could certainly submit anything in response to it if you wish. And the same invitation goes to Attorney Marcus too.
Yes.
And we will dutifully read any of the case citations beforehand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
So we have two more matters still. 9 Gallows Road, Z-21-21. Would the applicant come forward to present their appeal? Okay, I think the applicants are muted.
Yeah,
There we go.
unmuted.
Okay,
All right, 9 Gallows Road. We have submitted an appeal for an accessory apartment that exceeds the 800 square foot maximum to be built in an existing structure. This existing structure was built at the same time that the main house has built here at 9 Gallows Road in 1991. It is currently a 4-car garage with a loft area. And,
Hey, can I please have your name for the record?
oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it's Ken Heidinger,
Can you spell your last name for me?
Hydinger.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other items before I continue?
please continue and welcome to the ZBA.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the structure was built at the same time as the original home. It's a 4-car garage, tandem garage with a loft. It was built with electricity, water, and a septic waistline.
Which the centralized septic has been approved by the state as well. So it's already connected and running.
Yeah, it's approved by the state as a centralized system using the existing 4-bedroom septic as built. The apartment will not require any changes to the footprint of the building, so it no changes to that. And it's planned to include a 1-car garage, a kitchen, a full bath, and a sitting area on the first floor. And on the second floor will be a loft area, and the other half would be a 1-bedroom and a half bath. So the building itself is 25 by 40. We are looking to build a 1-bedroom accessory apartment there for my son to live in. My wife and I are in our late 60s, and he's looking to be close to us to take care of us, or perhaps we even move into that later on. And the other benefit is that we're building it in such a way that the full bath and kitchen can be used for entertainment of the pool area that we have in place. I don't have images of the design. I did submit those with the plans, but I can share my screen and show the property layout and where the building is located today, as well as some pictures of that if desired.
Okay. I would now ask if any members of the board have any questions of Mr. Heidinger.
We're a little fat on the square footage, 53% over the 800. I'm looking at your drawings and just trying to figure out where you can lose some of that. I realize it's a pre-existing structure and everything, but if you were listening earlier, we turned somebody, it was an issue on an earlier application, and we asked them to come back with a tighter drawing. Can you make it a garage and a half? I don't know, that's my concern, the size of it. It's 1,200-foot apartment.
I agree. We did have exactly the same issues with the previous one. So we have to kind of stick with what we already had in the previous application and continue to this one. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to change course.
So would you suggest that Mr. Heidinger revise his application for the next meeting, or?
Neil?
I'd like to see him come back with something instead of just turning him down.
So.
Yeah, because we do have, you have heard that we have issues when there's a turn down coming back. So I would ask Neil to, can you sort of give Mr. Heidinger again your ballpark guess as far as what you think would be more reasonable?
1,000 square feet. 20% over isn't so bad. It's a freestanding building, but 50% is a lot. So 25 square feet, or additional. I'm sorry, 25% square footage over. That'd be great. I think we could live with that. That 800 square foot number is there for a reason. We need to stay close to it.
So would you be willing to consider coming back next month, Mr. Heidinger?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll take a motion to table this matter until the May meeting. And second,
I'll second that.
okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? It has been tabled then. Okay. The next item we have is the application for 17 Hidden Brook Drive, application number Z-21-25. Would the applicant come forward to present the application?
Yeah, hi, how are you? My name is Ken O'Hara, the property owner at 17 Hidden Brook Drive. Is everything on my speaker mute? Everything's on?
Yes.
Okay, so my application is, there's two things. One, by matter of form, when I filled out the application, I tried to keep the size of it under 200 square feet. So I wrote down, I believe 10 by 18. I'm looking for something much smaller than that, something around, it's just a garden shed. I'm looking for something around 8 by 10. So I don't know if that requires a new application or if I could just modify it in this hearing. That's a question. I don't know. But let me just explain what it is I'm looking for. So we bought this house about 18 months ago. I'm a builder. We came down from Goshen, I work up in the Torrington area. What we're looking to do, it's really just an accessory shed to a garden. I can probably, if I can screen share with you, I can probably show it a little bit easier than I can explain it. So can I try that?
Sure.
So you want to share a document then?
Yes.
So Allison, can you enable him to do that?
I just did. He should be all set.
Okay. How's that?
Oh, we see it.
Okay, so this is the house. The garden is right here. There's a pool right here. The setback line is a 50-foot side yard setback on this side, which runs to about here. My application is to put the shed right in about here. And again, it's about an 8 by 10 shed. It's not very big. It's a garden shed. It's something I'm going to build on site. It's not something that I'm going to buy prepackaged. The hardship is that, well, one thing from a practical standpoint, it's not really a hardship. I'm trying to keep it close to the garden and the pool. But separately, the hardship is the property, the way it works is this here slopes off fairly severely. From here to here is about a 10-foot drop. So I can't, other than putting a shed in the middle of the yard here, this is my front yard and it's all fairly flat. And then this side of the property, everything slopes upward. So other than taking trees down and bringing in a fair amount of fill, there's really no place, or plopping it in the middle of the yard somewhere. There's really no place for me to put an accessory shed that's not either in a difficult slope or in the middle of the yard, which I'd rather not do. I've spoken with the property owner here on the north side. Before I put the application in, I spoke to him about it. He helped me locate the property lines. He's been living here for quite a while. He's fine with it. I also, there was let me kind of go out of the screen. I'm not sure how to stop sharing. Hang on a second.
Okay.
All right. I did speak, there was an opposition letter submitted by Grant McMahon. I did speak with Grant last weekend, kind of explaining to him what is going on with what I'm trying to do here. I haven't heard anything from him. I'm not sure if he's in the meeting right now. That's the application. Are there any questions?
Any questions from board members? And I just wanted to ask board members if you have seen the objection letter.
No, I haven't.
Okay, this is from Mr. McMahon. And he said, quote, "I submit my objection to the variance requested for the following reasons. One, the position of the shed will be in close proximity to and highly visible from Hidden Brook Drive as you head north past number 19 and towards 20. Having the rear facing side of a 10 by 18 shed close to and visible from the road will detract from the aesthetics of the neighborhood and have a negative impact on marketability of property along the stretch of road. Two, there is no substantiated argument for the placement of the shed in the application. There are numerous alternative sites for placement of a shed that fall within the property setbacks. The placement appears to be an attempt to keep the shed out of sight for the property owner, but could create a possible eyesore for other residents to the west of his property. Signed, Grant McMahon. That was submitted October 5th, 2021. And by the way, I'll make sure that the applicant has full opportunity to respond to that.
Sure, I'm sorry. So I did speak with Grant after I got his letter. He's mistaken. There is no place for me to put the shed other than in the middle of a yard there. Second, the shed is in a close proximity to the front of my house. It's something that I can see from my bedroom window. It's something I can see from my garden, from my pool deck. So the thought that I would build something that would not be aesthetically appropriate for a neighborhood is a little off. And there is a hardship. So I'm not sure where he's forming his opinions from, other than he's never been on the property. And he never spoke with me prior to me receiving the letter.
All right. I will ask if any members of the board have any questions.
I do. Would you be able to push the shed back even or behind the front plane of your house?
Sorry, say one more time.
Would you be able to move the shed back closer towards your garden so it's not beyond the front plane of your house?
I understand the question. No, the property, if I can, let me try to screen share again. Can you see that?
No.
No, try again.
I'm looking at the photo you put in with the cones, and the ground's pretty rough there and everything. Just wondering if you can move it a few feet towards the other front yard, because you obviously have two front yards.
Yeah, I can move it more towards the center of property, away from the road. But maybe the issue though is the property line cuts in at an angle right there.
Yep.
So I start getting really close to the property line. As the more towards the center of the lot I go, the closer to the property line I come. So yeah, I can move it a few feet, but it's not really significant.
Or a couple of feet, and maybe you can shield it from Hidden Brook Road with a few evergreens.
Yeah, it's in. It's in the woods actually. It is pretty.
Yeah, I'm
well
looking at the
shielded.
photo here where you want to put it. It does look pretty concealed.
It's really, I can certainly add some more shrubbery around it. That could be part of the application. But it's pretty concealed that's the idea, right? Tuck it in so it's not objectionable. And usable, because I have to be able to physically get to it also.
Right. Okay, that was my only question.
Okay, any other questions from board members? Hearing nothing. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak in favor of this application? Hearing nothing, are there any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, does the applicant wish to say anything final before we close off the evidentiary portion?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll take a motion to close the evidentiary portion of this hearing.
So moved, Louise.
And Juliana, second. All in favor? Aye.
Just
Okay,
for clarification, are we in fact doing the application with the condition that he's gonna try to move, or he's going to move as Neil requested a little more and add shrubbery? The shrubs, is that what we're doing? The application amended that way or as originally sent, applied?
well, first we'll take a motion to approve this application because this is the only one now for deliberations. So I will take a motion to approve this application as submitted, and then somebody can move to amend if you wish.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Yeah.
Okay, who seconded it?
Lisa,
Lisa, okay, sorry. Okay, so let's discuss this.
Can I speak? Is that okay? Is that part of it within the process?
Well, actually, now it's just for the members to speak.
Okay, understood.
So would someone be willing to approve as is, or somebody be willing to approve with conditions?
I'm willing to approve as is. He's got 2 front yards. It's wooded over there.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other
It's
thoughts?
already in the woods. You look at the photo that he supplied. I think it's fine. I mean, his driveway comes in from the other road, but he's still listed as Hidden Brook.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Are we ready to vote on the application to approve as submitted? Okay, I'll take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, it has been approved.
Okay.
Okay. And I believe that wraps up, I think, everything else that we have on the agenda then. We don't have any table items, no new business, no informal discussion, and our next meeting is scheduled for May 3rd, 2021.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if I can let the commission know, next meeting is going to be a very big meeting because of the what, 4 items being tabled tonight. There's
Yes.
already 7 scheduled. So that's going to be 11 on the agenda for May 3rd. So
okay,
let
so,
everybody know. And also, the Board of Selectmen have a meeting tomorrow night, and it looks like there's going to be 2 alternates appointed to ZBA. So we'll give everybody a little breathing room. So, but just a FYI, but the next meeting is going to be a very long one. So,
our next meeting, everybody load up on the tea and coffee and caffeine.
yep. Packages will be being delivered tomorrow, so be ready. So,
Okay.
Okay, we'll be able to lift it, I'm sure.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, in the meantime, I will try to look up these case citations and see if I can get them to all the members and staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Louise.
Okay, second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye.